Hey Spuddies, PotatoMcWhiskey here and welcome to Stellaris Necroids. It's been a while since we've played this game and I really enjoy it. So when Paradox offered me a key to try it out, I figured, why not? If you guys want to see more Stellaris content, if this video gets to 5,000 likes, I'll do another playthrough as a different species, but maybe some different galaxy setups. Today we're going to be playing as the Flesh Flayers, which is a custom empire that I built from scratch. The main species, of course, is the Bone, who are necrophages, which gives them a ton of amazing benefits, like having extremely long-lived leaders, which means they get to a very high level and provide your empire with a bunch of benefits. The downside, of course, is that their population grows really slowly, which is as a consequence of us playing as the Necrophage Origin, which is the new origin that's coming out with the DLC Necroids. To compensate for the fact that our population grows really slowly, we start off with a secondary species that we can convert into our primary species. I've gone ahead and called these guys meat, and the plural of that is meat, and the adjective is, of course, meaty. They are a humanoid species that have rapid breeders that allows them to grow really quickly. They're fleeting, but they don't actually serve as leaders, so it doesn't matter that their leader lifespan is really low. Similar idea is why I picked slow learners. If they can't be leaders, it doesn't matter if their leaders learn really slowly, but they are, however, charismatic, because the special neophyte necrophage job actually does generate amenities, and this is just kind of a little bit of a min-maxy move. Now, our main species of the Flesh Flayers, like I said, are actually necrophages, which gives them all those benefits. One of them is actually really nice, which is that they actually don't eat much food. I think that's really cool. It means we'll need a lot less farmers, which means overall we have a much more efficient economy. I decided to take slow breeders with these guys as well because they already grow incredibly slowly, so slow breeders doesn't really affect me that much because my plan is to never actually grow this pop and only sort of assimilate other beings into my empire and turn them into my population. I did make them extremely adaptive so that settling other worlds wouldn't be as penalizing. They are also fleeting, which an extra 10 years lost doesn't really matter that much when you have a positive 80 modifier from the necrophage trait. And I also picked up traditional because I really like unity-based plays where you go for a really early unity gain and get all your traditions unlocked and then try to overwhelm someone with a bunch of bonuses. I think that's a really cool way to play, so that's why I went for traditional. Our home world will be called Azan's Crucible, which is a desert world in the Ukex Beacon system. Our government and ethics, we are an imperial authority empire, which means we have sort of a ruler and an heir situation going on, as opposed to a more democratic system like oligarchy or full-on democracy that has elections. We are militarist, which means we can expand into enemy empires much easier and our ships fire faster. We're also xenophobic, which means that our population grows a little bit faster, which is going to help make up for the fact that our population grows really slowly. We can purge and enslave alien species, which is really nice because we also picked up the Slaver Guild's civic here that gives us a 10% resource output boost to all of enslaved populations and makes sure that at least 40% of our population is enslaved. We're also authoritarian, which gives us the stratified economy living standards. We can enslave people. We can't use democracy, but we do get a nice boost to our monthly influence, our worker resource output. Part of my goal is going to be to raid other people's planets and steal their population to turn them into my slaves and actually convert them into population. So that's why I went for the Barbaric Despoilers, because that gives you the raiding bombardment stance right from the start of the game. One of the really cool things that I like about the Necrophage is that the guaranteed habitable planets that you normally spawn with in Stellaris, so typically when you start a game, 2 to 3 planets sort of in the nearby region will be of the perfect type for you to settle. Instead, what they do is they convert those into primitive civilizations that you can kind of conquer, take over, and then start to convert into your population, like you're assimilating them into some agglomerated Necron, consciousness. Other than that, we are the Flesh Flayers with the Flayer adjective. I made a little blocky kind of flag. We are, of course, using the Necroid ship models, and our ruler will be Roeth Honslet. I don't know, I just randomly picked a name. He's a ruler, he's a warlord, the air title is Overlord. Let's just go ahead and jump in. We'll be playing on a small size map with all completely standard settings. I figured I do really enjoy playing on the larger maps, but what kind of happens to me is I get really deep into the game and then I never finish them because I'm Because I'm like, man, I've already conquered like 400 stars and now I've got another 600 to go. So we'll just play on a smaller map because I think that'll be a little bit more fun and interesting, and maybe we'll actually finish the game. Lovely. Here is the Flesh Flayers. We are a bandit kingdom. Let's begin. Now, we seem to have spawned in the northeastern corner of the galaxy, if indeed galaxies have cardinal directions. And there's a few things you want to do at the start of the game, depending on what your strategy is. One of the very first things we want to take care of is research, and I really like picking up early science, because it means all subsequent science has just gotten that little bit quicker. So we'll grab quantum theory, biodiversity studies, and nanomechanics. Overall, this will result in a nice tidy boost to our entire empire-wide research output. There's a few other small things we need to take care of. For example, I'd like to set our trade policy to consumer benefits, which allows us to convert trade value, which is produced by some of our population, into consumer goods, which means we don't need to actually build factories to build those consumer goods to support our population, which I find very nice. Since we don't need a lot of food, we're also going to sell off all of the food that we start with, and that's so we can get a scientist for this new science ship that we're going to construct. Speaking of science ships, we do have one here already, and it's Tongwin Hoblorn, who is a resilient guy. So he's probably going to live a couple hundred years because he's got a leader lifespan plus 25 years, which is quite nice because he'll be around for a long time. I think we're just going to start off by exploring the local area so that we can maybe find one of those primitive civilizations to invade. Stellaris is one of those games that just has so much going on that it can be kind of hard to get to grips with all the details. So I'm going to try to paint with broad brushes as I play and not focus on too much detail. Like, for example, I could talk about how my warlord here, who is the leader of my empire, gives me architectural sense, which makes everything cheaper to build, as well as space miner, which makes mining stations cheaper and more productive. But Stellaris is one of those kind of games where you can just really, go in like layers and layers and layers deep. For example, not only do I have a leader, I have a governor on my planet who gets extra experience because he's adaptable. I can look at all of these individual jobs like artisans here, and I could look, oh look, these guys are producing 5.71, consumer goods per turn, and they're using 6 minerals. I'm going to try to stay away from this sort of in-depth look at things and paint with broad brushes. I realize that some of my viewers may be already familiar with the game, but a lot of my viewers may never actually have seen Stellaris played, so I'm trying to give you an idea, a narrative of the game of being the Necroids. We actually did find a habitable planet here, well, potentially habitable. It's an alpine world of size 13 in the Mysa system. This could be something worth considering as a settlement, and I'm going to go ahead and get my science ship to stop here and survey. And the cool thing is, if I hold Control and Shift, that puts the order to survey this system at the top of the queue, and then he'll continue on doing his little orders here. Our second science ship is built, and we need to get a leader for him. I have a choice of 3 here, and none of them are particularly good, so I'll just grab the genius guy because he might serve on our scientific research later on in the game. Oh wow, this is a really interesting home system. I don't think I've ever seen a nebula like this actually spawn inside my borders. That's so cool. The graphics are amazing on this. I really like that's how it looks, and I really like that we spawned inside this. Anyway, what we're going to do with this science ship for now is just to actually assist research in our capital, because we don't want to actually explore that many systems just yet. What we want to do is unlock the discovery tree so that we can get the Edict Map the Stars, which will give us better access to anomalies. Anomalies have a lot of really nice benefits. You can get free ships from them, you can improve the quality of planets, you can improve the quality of systems. So I don't really want to expand much. I'm going to play very close to my chest for the first couple of years of the game. We have enough minerals stored up now to build a proper building in our empire capital. And I think I always like to start with the Autocon Monument. I don't know how to actually pronounce that, but this is a really cool building because it gives you society research and unity. Society research is of course used to unlock society unlocks, which can get you things like population growth speed, access to better armies, new edicts, better governments, and unity can be used to unlock traditions, and there are 7 tradition trees, and I like to open up with discovery. That's not all we need to do though, because we need to talk about our species here. Now, my bone guys here, they're currently set to chattel slavery, which means that 40% of my population of bones are going to be converted into slaves because I'm a slaver guild, which means if I don't have enough population, I won't be able to work these specialist jobs because the chattel slavery sort of denotion doesn't allow them to work these specialist jobs unless it's a special category like the neophyte, because obviously my meat here, I will be converting them into chattel slavery so they use less resources, and they'll be able to continue to work in the neophyte job because this has a special flag that allows any slave to work in it. So I'm going to go ahead and convert my main species into indentured servitude, which will allow them to actually work in those sort of higher power level jobs, and it'll actually reduce the amount of happiness penalty they take. My meat, on the other hand, I will be turning into chattel slavery, which will reduce the total sort of power and amenities and stuff that they take, but will give them extra resource output. We can always change these things later on, but I think for now that's the most optimal way to do it. It looks like one of our science ships has discovered alien life, which means we may not be alone out here, which gives us a nice boost to our society research and also gives us access to the Gruner. I think this is and it also gives us access to the Gruner precursors, which are like the people who inhabited the galaxy before we arrived in this region. We've also discovered an archaeological site over in Mysa, and this is the Gruner Ruins archaeological site, which I think has some really interesting story things, and I think we can get a really cool relic at the end of it. First things first though, let's get the Discovery Tradition opened. And once we save up enough influence, we'll grab Map the Stars and begin exploring the universe. Ooh, we've also discovered an ocean world over in Vega. Haven't found any of those primitive civilizations yet though. I'll keep exploring out there to see if we can find them. Time to unlock our second tradition. I'm going to go for To Boldly Go, which increases our survey speed and gives us a better chance of our science ships escaping if they encounter hostile fleets. We have enough influence saved up to get Map the Stars, which gives us a 10% boost to our anomaly discovery chance, which is a big deal, and it's why I've been holding off on surveying all this time. Every anomaly that we discover inside our land could potentially give us extra minerals, extra strategic resources, extra science. It's a whole bunch of benefits, so it's worth it to wait the couple of years that it takes to do that if you're going for this strategy. Now that we've done that though, it's time to begin our surveying. And in fact, I'm probably going to grab another 2 science ships because I like to have a lot of them in the very, very early game. I like to have 2 out there exploring new worlds. I like to have 1 assisting research in my capital. I like to have 1 researching anomalies, doing archaeological things, all that sort of jazz. Another tradition unlocked. Let's grab a databank uplinks. That's going to give us a 10% boost to our research station output. Aha, we have encountered the Hiran civilization. They are a primitive civilization dwelling on the planet of Eritrea. They live in the Bronze Age, and there are exactly 8 of them living on this planet, which means this is going to be a prime real estate for us to invade. They have some primitive armies, so I will need to recruit some of my own. Let's grab those assault armies from our capital. I think 1 army should be enough to defeat them. They're only Bronze Age aliens, and we are in the Space Age. Aha! Contact report, even more primitives. We have found the Krull civilization over in Agster, and they have 12 populations. This is going to be a fantastic way for us to expand. I'm going to be trying to grab both of these planets. Now, these guys, I believe, they're actually in the Renaissance Age, so their armies are probably a little bit stronger. This scientist, Kyra Stutton, has really good anomaly research speed, so we're going to set her the task of gathering up all these anomalies that we have across our empire and figuring out what they do. These anomalies that spawn, they typically are something fairly vague, like ship sensors are picking up an unexplained pattern of interference, and depending on the outcome of the investigation, you'll get some benefit in the system. And here's the outcome. It is sonified science, which has a little bit of lore behind it, but more importantly, we get a bit of society and physics research to boost us along in the early game. And that's why I think those anomalies are so important, because this is a huge boost to your early game. Let's go ahead and claim our very first system with primitives. It does cost us a bit of influence and alloys, but the value of grabbing a planet like this so early into the game is massive. Another month, another tradition. This time I'm going to pick up Science Division, which is going to give us extra research alternatives, which basically what that means is every time you research a technology in Stellaris, you get a selection of 3 techs to choose from. Having +1 research alternative means we'll have 4 choices, which gives us a better chance of actually finding the techs that we want. The scientific level cap is also pretty nice because our leaders live so long. Depending on what job your scientist is doing, they give you different benefits, but usually it's just going to mean that the people actually working in research are going to give you more benefits. Let's go ahead and recruit a general for our army. I'll grab Restrained here. This guy will mean he'll do less collateral damage to the planet and population during battle. And then we'll go ahead and land our armies on the planet to take it over. What I like about this is if you watch it, you should be able to see like a little drop pod exit the ships and land on the planet. So you can kind of just barely see it there in the screen. But the planetary invasion has begun. We have 1 regiment of bone assault armies against 3 primitive armies. Let's go ahead and see what the outcome is. Oh man, it looks like we're demolishing them already. As you can see here, we are doing a little bit of devastation to the planet as a consequence of this battle. Looks like we're just about to kill the 2nd primitive army here, and our guys have only taken a little bit of damage. And here we go, just about to finish the invasion. Capture the planet for ourselves. The downside is, of course, that the population of this planet are going to get stellar culture shock as a penalty. That is a massive penalty to the resources, stability, and so on and so forth from this planet, because they're kind of like, imagine, you know, Bronze Age people being brought into a galactic fold. It does, however, mean that we have a new species of chattel slaves who have pretty weak abilities as far as I can tell. Quick learners isn't amazing, traditional isn't useful, and resilient is actually pretty damn good if I were to use them as defense armies. Since these guys already have desert preference, I think I'm gonna go ahead and enable population controls on them so they can't grow any more population, because I'd rather grow these this meat species that has all the traits that I want in my subservient species on my planets. That does mean I'm going to have to come into this planet and resettle some population over. I'll grab myself a couple of these bone guys who can serve as my colonists, a couple of these meat guys. And once I grow another meat population on my capital, I'll move one of those guys over as well. Finished our very first technology, biodiversity studies, which is a 20% boost to the society research from researchers. Now we get to choose from some new technologies. I actually like every single one of these techs here. Planetary Unification would give us some extra edicts as well as a nice bonus to our unity. Neural implants would give us access to slave armies, which are cheaper to maintain and do just about as good as other armies, as well as the slave processing facility, which allows us to get a 5% resource boost from our slaves, which I really, really like. We also have a subterranean colonization, which is probably my least favorite of all these. Eco simulators, on the other hand, is fantastic because it would mean we would need so many fewer farmers in our empire. We already don't need that many farmers, so I kind of like the idea of going for slave processing facilities here for that extra resource output. The more efficient we can make our economy, the more resources we have to throw at our enemies and raid them. Looks like we found an abandoned amusement park in one of these anomalies, and these are like goodie huts in Civ 6. They just give you really nice boosts. That extra research is going to go a long way to getting us ahead of the other opponents. Nanometrics research is complete. Let's grab ourselves improved Corvette hulls to make our ships stronger. Polytechnic Education Tradition is available now. That's going to give us a 25% boost to our leader experience gain, and because our leaders live for a very long time, they're going to get to a really high level. Quantum theory research completed. Out of all these choices, I like picking up field modulation early in the game. Energy is often the resource I struggle with the most when I'm playing Stellaris. We've discovered another archaeological site. This one is Target from Orbit, which seems to be some sort of artificial station that has been abandoned that we can investigate. Let's go ahead and invade our second primitive world. We have 2 transports this time, just so that it goes a little bit quicker, although I think these guys are a little bit weaker, and they should fall extremely quickly. We have subjugated the Xenos, and while they also suffer from stellar culture shock, it's still worth it because these are all pops that we can convert into our Necroids. The new species of the Crawl are actually much better than the Hiran, so I think I will keep those guys around, at least on this planet. There'll be no need to disable their reproductive protocols. We have found a little lost juvenile amoeba. And it seems to think one of my science ships is its mother. Well, we're kind of xenophobes, so I think we're going to go ahead and dissect it. Time to pick up a faith in science, which is the last tradition in the discovery tree, which is going to make our researchers cost 20% less upkeep, and since their upkeep is consumer goods, that's really damn valuable. Picking this up will also give us the finisher bonus, which gives us plus 10% research across the board, and since we finish this, we can pick up an Ascension Perk. There's a whole bunch of these to pick from, which are, you know, for example, Shared Destiny is great if you're going to have vassal states. Transcendent Learning is great if you want to have really strong leaders. This is actually one I really enjoy. That 50% leader experience gain is massive. Executive Vigor allows us to have more edicts active. Imperial Prerogative allows us to have more administrative capacity, which is something I haven't actually talked about. But basically, administrative capacity is how good your bureaucracy is at maintaining your empire. Currently, we're a little bit over our administrative capacity, so we're taking some penalties. Our technologies, traditions, and campaigns cost more to enact. Mastery of Nature is another really great one if you want to play more of a pacifist style, because it allows you to upgrade the size of your planets, essentially. One Vision is also amazing if you're going for a high unity playthrough, because it lowers the amount of amenities your pops use and increases your monthly unity. This game we're going to be going for Interstellar Dominion, however, because influence is one of the most limited resources you have access to in the game, and a 20% discount on claiming systems is huge. Now that we have that, it's time to get ourselves another construction ship, because we can now start to mass expand to all of this territory here. It has been 10 years since the game began, and we can begin our very first elevation ceremony on our capital. At the end of the year, all necrophytes on my capital planet will be converted into my main species. That means all of this meat that we grew are going to be flayed and turned into bones, which is basically the only method of reproduction that we have available to us, because I'm pretty sure we actually can't force our population to grow. Lovely. We have dissected the juvenile amoeba, which gives us access to the regenerative whole tissue research. That's actually one of my favorite researches in the game, because it allows your ships to regenerate their hull and armor without having to go back to a starport to repair. Recruited myself another science ship to go ahead and excavate the archaeological site of the Gruner. Looks like we have found a familiar shrine, which could potentially lead down a path of faith for my empire. Let's go have a look into the Old Gods event chain. We now have 3 blinking systems that indicate where we might find old monoliths to the Old Gods. We have found the stellar shrine to the Benefactress. Let's research that and see what the outcome is. Looks like we've finally got some factions founded as well. We have the Hierarchical Union now. If we go ahead and check out our faction mode, this is the autocratic faction, and they seem to care heavily about autocracy, which means we want to be imperial or dictatorial, and they also want a stratified society where slavery is implemented. So they seem pretty happy right now, and the cool thing about that is population in my empire will begin to choose a faction to support and then inherit this happiness. And since I've kept this faction pretty happy, they'll also give me a nice boost to my influence gain, which, since it's so cheap for me to expand using influence, I'm going to start running into alloy penalties because I have a ton of influence now. Very cool. The Shrine to the Benefactress says linguists involved describe the language quickly connecting or clicking in their mind despite its age and complexity. I've also found another stellar shrine, this one to the Percipient. The thing is, there's so much going on now that it can kind of be a bit like jarring to jump around, but the Gruner Ruins has just had an event as well. But a group of large predators indigenous to Mysa 2 were recently discovered, and they have a lair in the ruins that we're excavating. So we can choose to remove the animals, or we'll have to go around them. I think I'm happy to spend the 100 energy to get the 3 clues, because that'll speed up how quickly we get a breakthrough. Looks like we also found the stellar shrine to the Undaunted. We have encountered our very first enemy ship, and this looks like a Necroid ship actually as well. Let's go ahead and investigate them. Time to unlock another tradition. We could choose to go for expansion. That'll lead us down a nice path of being able to expand more easily, have less empire sprawl, lowered starbase upkeep, extra colonial population and population growth speed. Or we could go down a supremacy route, I feel like, since we are about to encounter our first empire. I like the idea of going more of an expansion-oriented direction to get our empire sprawl down and make our empire a little bit more efficient and grow our population faster. So let's pick up expansion. I think we are well and truly past the exploration phase, even though we are still exploring heavily, and I think we are in the expansion phase. So that makes sense for me. All right, we have explored all of the old gods' shrines. I'm curious what the follow-up thing will be here. Ah, the revelation. So we can suppress the findings for extra influence, we can monetize the findings for extra money, we can use it as a learning experience to get some society research, or we could walk in the footsteps of the divine and get some extra unity and become a spiritualist empire. I think we are going to suppress the findings and get ourselves a nice boost to our influence. Ah, we have decoded ancient data crystals on the Gruner remains and picked ourselves up 5 minor artifacts. We're receiving a transmission from the Yaston hegemony. They appear to have successfully translated our language. Interesting. These guys are slaving despots. Wow, they're exactly what I am. That's amazing. They are, however, fanatic militarists rather than xenophobes. I wonder where they spawned, and I am going to assume the worst. Ah, there they are. These guys could actually be easy pickings for me if I want to go to war right now. The question is, do I want to focus on expansion for a while, or do I want to go straight into supremacy? I feel like I've already invested in expansion, and so it kind of makes sense to keep going down that route. I just have so much land to claim, and I have more planets than them anyway, so I should be able to outstrip them regardless. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and start colonizing some of the worlds that I have inside my territory. They're not great worlds with 40% habitability, but in the long run, these still produce a surplus. Field modulation completed, giving us a nice boost to our energy credits. Let's go ahead and research automated exploration protocols so that we get that nice survey speed and can set our science ships on automatic exploration. Oh, looks like we found some dark matter over in Lathandra, which is a strategic resource. Ooh, very nice. We've actually managed to finish the neural implants technology. Since the majority of our population on these new planets are slaves, I think we'll go ahead and build one here. They're pretty expensive with an upkeep of 2 and 360 minerals base cost, but that extra 5% resource output is nothing to sniff at. I need to pick up my next tech in society, and I think I like the idea of getting a 10% pop growth speed boost. More pops means more buildings, which means more jobs, which means more resources. Oh, we have finished the archaeological site for the Gruner. Looks like the Gruner were in war against the Baul. This gives me the precursor, the Baul chain event, and I can investigate the former Baul colony. Very cool. Let's go ahead and pick that up. I built this station right on the border with these guys because I don't want to actually go to war with them right now. And let's go ahead and build it up so that it's a really powerful defense station. I'll slap a couple of gun batteries on it and grab a disruption field generator, which will lower the shield hit points of anyone who's attacking me in this system. Oh hey, we found the Rubricator. Now I happen to know that this is one of the relic events, so we could go for the Rubricator. Let's go ahead and see if we can't pick it up. That'll start a new situation in our situation log about the Rubricator, and I can go ahead and track that on the map, zoom out, and it looks like it's in this hidden system that only just became available. Let's get a scientist out there to begin the investigation. Improved corvette hulls means our corvettes are stronger. I do think it's about time that we started upgrading our ships because we are going to be going to war in the next little while. This world that we conquered no longer is suffering from stellar shock, so we can finally build the Chamber of Elevation, and that's going to allow us to begin converting the population in here into our Necroids. We'll also need some civilian industries to actually pay for the consumer goods because we are starting to run low. We discovered the archaeological site Kleptomaniac Rats, which I believe leads to the Rubricator. I think it also spawns a dragon in this system. So we should probably ask ourselves, how badly do we want to research this versus how badly do we want to colonize this very nice relic world? I think in the interest of not min-maxing too hard, I'll go ahead and research the archaeological site first. Time for another tradition, and since we are settling colonies, I think I'm going to grab colonization fever because that'll end up with me having an extra 3 population. Also leads to that very nice 10% population growth rate. Well, it looks like we found the former Bowel colony, and this is going to give us access to 5 minor artifacts and a new archaeological dig site. My empire sprawl is starting to get a little bit out of hand. I'm paying 25% more for technology, 40% more for traditions, and I have to really ask the question, would another one of these monuments be worth it in order to increase my unity income, or would it be better to actually build a bureaucrat office to reduce my penalties up here? I think I'll just grab the bureaucrat jobs. I like the idea of having low administrative burden in my empire. Oh, it looks like we found the Photekian civilization over in the Asanis sector. I'm going to want to get a construction ship over there so I can claim it with my transports. They are an early space age civilization actually, and they have 28 population. Oh my goodness, I need to get over here immediately. Adding a free 28 population to my empire would be massive. I mean, when you consider how many pops I have right now, I have probably about 60 in total. This is nearly a 50% increase in the total population of my empire. Plus, they live on a tundra world, which will open up options for me to actually use them to settle tundra worlds. Agster is also no longer suffering from the stellar shocks. We can build ourselves a chamber of elevation here. Our leader, Warlord Roath Hanslet, has developed a new talent, for talent, which is really, really cool, because that means my leaders are going to get even higher level and even more experience. My leaders are already pretty high level, 4 out of 7 for Landor Hoblorn, and that gives us very nice benefits, like an 8% boost to yields in all planets within her sector, and she governs every single one of these planets. Not only that, but we get Empire Sprawl reductions and crime reductions. Let's go ahead and begin excavating the Rubricator site here. Ooh, we have another faction founded. This is the Bone Primacy block. Now, I'm wondering, what kind of faction are they going to be? They want a warlord to be of the bone species. They want to be strong alone, so they don't want to join a federation. They like invasive xeno studies. They like xeno disenfranchisement, which means their non-bone races will be slaves. They like no immigration treaties, and they want to assert dominance. So they want me to declare war, actually. The Hierarchical Union has actually developed a new issue as well. They want me to create some subject nations in order for them to be happier. You can see here, these little factions have started to generate more and more population support in my empire. Currently, the Hierarchical Union is the big kahuna right now. That's giving me 0.81 influence per month because I have them quite happy. The genome mapping is finished with that extra pop growth speed. Let's get planetary unification for those additional edicts. Ooh, newly founded colony in Krakoom Prime. I have 2 more on the way over here in Vega Prime and Mysa Prime. These are going to be pretty bad colonies for a very, very long time. The primitive civilization on this planet is much more capable of actually defending themselves. They have a lot of pretty tough armies. Now, they're no match for the armies that I can build, especially if I use the slave armies to build massive armies. I think I'm going to do a mixture of assault and slave armies to take them over. The first chapter of the Rubricator, we found some toppled over buildings and a bunch of other information, but most importantly, we get those 10 minor artifacts. I'm not going to read all this, you can pause the game and read them if you want. Aha, we've also converted 3 pops for our species in the elevation ceremony on Azen's Crucible. Let's grab a new life for our next tradition. 10% pop growth speed is going to be very nice. It means now with all of our benefits on our capital, we're growing a population at a rate of 4.2 per month. Just shy of about 25 months to get a new pop, which is every 2 years, I want to say. I found a weird signal on a gas giant planet, and now I have a gas giant transmission event. Apparently they are the Dathnak and they live on Talak Wrong. Looks like their species is going to perish because their planet is dying, and they can't find any other planets that suit their physiology. And they want me to transport their entire species to a different planet. I think I'm going to help them relocate because I expect they might give me some kind of gift or benefit afterwards. It is a timed project, however, so I only have 1,000 days to pull it off. Chapter 2 of the Rubricator. We found some tunnel bores deep into the earth. Let's keep on digging. We must dig deep and greedily to unleash the dragon. Ah, brilliant. We've unlocked automatic exploration. I really like automated exploration because it means I have so many science ships now and I don't want to micromanage them all. Let's grab fusion reactors. We're going to want to upgrade our ship soon. Uh-oh, one of my planets is being pummeled by asteroids, and they want me to build an asteroid defense system. I think I'm going to go ahead and build the asteroid defense system. It's going to cost me 120 months of research, which is 10 years, but I think it's important enough to do. Apparently there's an order to the Rat's Chaos in the Kleptomaniac Rubricator event. Let's go ahead and grab those minor artifacts. I don't have a lot that I can do with my minor artifacts right now, but I currently have 39. I could sell them to private collectors, but my economy is doing fine. I can also proclaim my superiority or do museum exhibits on some of my planets. Museum exhibits would give me a 20% boost to my culture worker output, which isn't too bad. It's basically like spending 1,000 gold for a 20% boost to my unity on this planet. And you know what? I actually really like that idea. So let's do it. Might only result in a very small amount of extra unity, but it all adds up over time. Lovely, we have relocated the Dathnak to their new home in Shorax 4. Let's go ahead and hail them and see what they have to say. They call the new home Baldorak after our species, but our name is Bones. What are they calling it Baldorak? Really? Oh, okay. So they mismatched our name. But the nice thing is, we get +5 society research if we build a research station around that gas giant. I'm so glad I can automate my explorers now because there are so many stars left to have a look at. We've got our new army ready and built. Let's go ahead and land our armies on that primitive world. Uh-oh, looks like we found an odd factory on Vega Prime. I'm sure nothing, untoward could happen from sending our people to go work in that weird factory. Looks like it just generates alloys out of nowhere, which I'm a big fan of. However, I'm worried that some of my population might disappear. So let's just keep them working those colonist jobs. Running out of things to explore now, so I think some of my scientists are going to be heading home to assist research in my capital, just to squeeze out an extra little bit of science. Planetary Unification acquired. Let's grab regenerative hull tissue so we can upgrade our ships as well. So these are our new edicts, which cost energy instead of influence. An education campaign might not be bad for the extra leader experience. A fear campaign would give us extra unity though, and a recycling campaign would mean we would use less consumer goods for upkeep. Man, I'm kind of torn between the education campaign and the fear campaign. I like the idea of the fear campaign. That extra 10% unity is going to be very valuable. We have found a foul stench in the planet holding the Rubricator. Apparently there are giant piles of fecal matter strewn around the planet and some extremely large footprints. The invasion of Asaniz 4 has begun. We've got our assault armies and our slaves armies. Looks like some of our slave armies aren't doing so great, but our assault armies are cutting through these troops like butter. Now you can see these guys are way tougher, owing to the fact that we're actually taking damage compared to the primitives who were basically doing nothing to us. Reach for the stars. Starbase influence cost reduced by 10%. When stacked with all our other modifiers, I think we get them for less than half price now, which is ridiculous. And the last post-atomic defense army falls and we claim this world. They do get stellar culture shock still, so they're not going to be massive use to us for quite a while, and I'll probably need to resettle some population in here to keep it under control. Planet's in some serious trouble. Let's go ahead and negotiate with the crime lords to bring a bit of stability here and prevent the crime from getting out of hand. We've got 14 unemployed people here, and I don't have enough jobs for them. I might have to relocate them, but I can't until I get rid of Stellar's culture shock. I think we're going to take these guys off of chattel slavery and put them on indentured servitude to make them a little bit happier. And I think I'm also going to give them residency, because otherwise this planet's going to be a hotbed of revolt. I'm going to declare martial law on this planet as well. Alright, we've got the Economic Development Committee forming as a faction. Neato, we actually found an abandoned shipyard and picked up 3 pretty damn powerful corvettes. We also found a cruiser that had crashed into a planet and resurrected it. Uh-oh, we found some crystalline asteroids, and I have a feeling some very evil space monsters are going to spawn out of this system. Chapter 1 of the Barren Planet in the Gruner event chain. Looks like we pick up a few nice minor artifacts. The Empress Motel at the very center of the city overlooking the main square is a grand, ostensibly decorated palace with a garish neon sign advertising the Empress Motel. Inside of their lavish chambers filled to the brim with treasure from which the Empress and her horde of trusted advisors governed. This is where the Rubricator is. Fusion reactors completed. Let's grab improved deflectors. And also let's design a ship here. So I'm going to click autocomplete on the pentatometer. And it'll fill out everything for me, so I don't have to. which is what I usually do if I don't care about the early game design. I haven't unlocked that many components. The only new thing I have is actually a fusion reactor, which just gives the ship a bit of excess power. And don't get me wrong, excess power isn't too bad, because it does give the ship a little bit of evasion, a little bit of speed, and a little bit of extra damage. We'll call this the Scythe, and we'll explore this in greater detail later. Talons from the Void. We have completed the Rubricator event chain, and a horrifying dragon has spawned. Let's engage evasive maneuvers, grab our 30 artifacts, and let's have a look at this dragon. My word, is it horrifying. And we're gonna have to kill this someday, although I actually don't know how big of a fleet you need to kill it. It's got to be something for long in the future. Tradition-wise, we're going to grab Courier Network, which will reduce our Empire sprawl from systems and colonies by 25%. Considering systems and colonies make up a significant portion of our Empire sprawl, that's going to be very nice. And this penalty is just growing as we continue to expand. Pop that in right now. And our Empire sprawl came down about 15 points, which is pretty nice. Finished exploring this bowel colony, let's go ahead and find the next one. This one's over in Trabur, which I actually haven't claimed yet, so let's get a starbase there. But you can see, in stark contrast to the beginning, we're starting to hold a sizable portion of this galaxy, and our opponents have been expanding rapidly down to the south, so I'm actually sending a construction ship to get this choke point and hold them off. That'll allow me to continue to safely expand to the south without having to compete with them on multiple fronts. I can just reduce it down to a single or 2-point front. Ideally, I would have swung in and stolen Kunbar, but I don't think that was possible. Their fleet power is overwhelming compared to me, and they do have a decent number of planets now. So my next tradition will be supremacy, so I can build up a much bigger fleet and take them on. Coil gun is now finished, so let's pick up standardized corvette patterns to make our ships a little cheaper to construct. And we'll also put our new coil guns onto our ship, which will actually significantly increase its damage. It's up to 9 damage per day, which is very nice. Recruiting an admiral, look like Cumbra Blunsbury will be our guy. He's a trickster, so he has a pretty good chance of actually getting out of combat if things go badly. It's time to realize our galactic ambition and get our starbase upkeep reduced by 20%. Currently they cost us about 40 energy credits a month, and that's only going to keep expanding. This is a pretty good little savings. It also unlocks the expansion tradition, which gives us 1 additional district on every single planet except for habitats and ring worlds. And we can pick up an extra Ascension Perk slot. Let's pick up Transcendent Learning, which will give us a 50% boost to all of our experience gains and higher level leaders. It's not the best one, but I think it's a really fun one to pick. Improved deflectors are unlocked. Time for administrative AI. We also grab standardized corvette patterns. It's about time we picked up Soramo metal materials for better armor. Oh, looks like my old friend Dathnax would like to establish a colony. I mean, that sounds like fun. Let's go ahead and do that for them. Asuniz is now finally stabilized, so I think I can end the deal with the crime lords. That'll give me a bit of negative stability on this planet. I'm going to distribute some luxury goods here and then end martial law as well. The planet is suffering pretty heavily, but it's just stable enough for me to deactivate all those emergency protocols, and now it'll actually start to produce a good surplus for me. The birth of space pirates. Nice. I don't really want to deal with these guys, so I have my fleet already en route. Really would prefer if they don't kill this, so I don't have to rebuild it. Alright, here's my fleet. Alright, they're gonna die pretty easily. It's actually a good opportunity for my commander here to get a little bit of experience in fighting. Orbital trash dispersal. The Caravaneers want to give me an interesting technology for consumer goods. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. Orbital trash dispersal. This is a new component that gives me plus 25% orbital bombardment damage. That's pretty cool. Finished the archaeology site on the second bowel colony, and it looks like we're going to have to do a third one. Finally, this is a tech that I have been looking for a long time, the Starhold. It's going to allow me to upgrade my space stations up to the next tier. It'll only take me 67 months to research it as well. Found a ruined science nexus over in Zultar's Maw right outside a black hole. That's very cool. We will be able to restore this later in the game and get a ton of science from it. some rackets want to join my civilization. An extra 5 pops is pretty nice, especially since they will eventually be converted into the correct population anyway. Plus, the rackets have the unique ability of psionics, and they're really good at settling pretty much anywhere. So I might turn these into my sort of secondary species who have more rights than the rest. We're going to change the rackets from being pure slaves to being residents of my empire. That'll give them a little bit of a penalty to happiness and stuff like that, but I'll be able to use them to do things like, for example, give them stratified economy, which is my unique living standard that means lower classes suffer and higher classes don't. I'm also going to give them colonization rights so I can use them to colonize on planets. They won't have any population controls, no migration controls, and they will be the indentured servitude slavery type, allowing them to serve in higher class jobs. At long last, regenerative whole tissue is complete, and this is what I've been waiting for, really, before I go to war. Let's design ourselves a new ship, of course, with the regenerative hull plating. It actually represents a pretty huge percentage of these ships' health and armor regenerating every day. We'll slap in some improved deflectors, ceramo metal armor. Now we've got some damn fine ships with a lot of health, decent armor, decent shields, and some really good DPS, thanks to the level 2 coil guns that we have. We'll upgrade our current fleet to the new ships. It'll cost us about 300 alloys. And in the fleet manager, we'll go ahead and reinforce the rest of them. So we'll have at least one fully built, ready to fight fleet. Although I am going to run into some naval capacity problems here because I've only got 20. So I went ahead and built a station over in Misa. And now we're going to go ahead and slap in some anchorages here, and that'll give me a little bit of extra naval capacity to play with. We did start out with just a handful of the bone population, but we've been slowly elevating all of these pops. Now they are growing slightly faster than we're elevating, but that doesn't really matter. We have a huge population of Necroids now. And if we look at the galaxy-wide populations, we're actually the second most populated species in the entire galaxy, based on what we know at least. And we also have one of the other highest most populated species, which is the Photekians, who belongs to us. Oh dear, it looks like I wasn't wrong about this being filled with angry aliens, this very rich crystalline belt. Unfortunately, this poor little construction ship is gonna have some problems. And pretty much all of these mining stations are going to go the way of the dodo over in Nigel. That's alright, it does mean that we'll be able to clear this out later on. And I think these guys are actually worth quite a bit of resources when you kill them. 10% fire rate for our ships is very nice, as well as the orbital bombardment damage. Oh, we found the Gruner distress signal. Let's see if we can find where it is. Oh, a previously unknown system has appeared to the north of my empire. Let's go ahead and explore that. We also found a dimensional doorway on the planet Wendell Prime. Let's go ahead and probe the dimensional doorway. I'm sure nothing bad will come of that. Oh, we completed a linguistic study and now we have access to a master's teaching philosophical mindset empire-wide edict. That's pretty cool. It gives me a 10% society boost and +1 leader pool size. Not something I think is super important for me, but it is very interesting. I think I'm going to plug in information quarantine here to get more stability and governing ethics attraction. I have a ton of influence just sitting around, so I may as well use it on... I have a ton of influence sitting around, so I may as well use it while I have it. Starholds are now unlocked for me. Let's also unlock destroyers so we have access to better ships. And we can begin upgrading our starholds. And we can begin upgrading our key star bases. For example, like Krackhelm Station, which is a trade station designed to pull in all the trade value from the local area. That trade value then follows this blue line throughout my empire towards my capital, generating value and piracy, which is a little bit of a problem for me. It's not that big of a problem though, because I do have a defense station here, and if I can get this upgraded to a starhold as well and slap another couple of modules on there, that'll act as an anti-piracy measure, so I won't have to have fleets patrolling my trade routes. Apparently I'm talking to myself through the portal, and the portal is a dimensional gap that bridges the way between two alternative realities. But in this alternative reality, they actually use warp drive instead of hyperlanes. and they are beset by warp beasts. I think I like the idea of of being on hyperlanes a little bit more than being beset by warp beasts. Let's go ahead and establish an interdimensional trade treaty. Sounds like a fun idea. Ooh, we finally found Gruner Prime and the very last Baul in existence in what looks like a sort of animation tank. All right, let's go ahead and attempt communication with him. He's shuddering in his vat, but I'm not the ones who put him there. I have a few questions before I let you out. They were uprooted, they were burned, they were sliced, and then they were left here. I want to know what happened to you guys. When the burners came, entire colonies were silenced before the danger was known to us, like a limb gone limp, nerves cut suddenly and totally at the base. Can you understand? We could not bear to hear more agony. The burners were swift, like you, swifter, and before we could withdraw. So these are like tree people who have had their entire civilization burned to the ground. I've heard enough from you. So this looks like this was like the precursor to plant life in all the universe, because I can tell them that their people are no longer sapient. And the machines pumping mysterious fluids in and out of the creature's bodies begin to sputter and hiss, and the last bowel dies, and I get the relic, the last bowel, who is basically a dude in a suspended animation tank who is a tree. And by clicking on this magic button, I spend 150 influence and get 10% pop growth speed for 10 years. So we're going to click the button. Click. This is perfect. I've been looking for this tech for a while as well, the Naval Capacity Doctrine. That's going to give me an extra 30 ships total that I can have before I get support penalties. 10% cheaper ship upkeep and 20% naval capacity from our next tradition. Let's upgrade our railguns to level 3 next. Here is our gunship Dominion class destroyer. 2 tier 2 railguns, 1 medium, 1 small, 2 tier 1 lasers, 1 medium, 1 small, 3 tier 2 shields, 3 tier 2 armor, and regenerative hull tissue with a level 3 reactor, 19 damage per day, and nearly 1,400 health. With the new destroyer available, we're going to go ahead and add that to our existing fleet up to 5 and then build them to reinforce them, because I think I would like to be prepped to go to war by the end of this episode. We could have rushed to war, but I kind of wanted to spend a little bit of time building out my empire, because that's more fun for me to have a sprawling huge empire that kind of encompasses a large portion of the galaxy, and then we can engage in like a massive raiding crusade against our neighbors. In particular, the Yaston hegemony are going to be who we go for first. But I've been going for about 3 hours here. About 50 years have passed in the game, and we have a sizable chunk of the galaxy claimed with a sizable chunk left to claim. We have a ton of colonies en route to some of these new planets, and our empire is well set up to execute the claiming of the people and converting everyone into our species. Of which, considering which we now have 74 of, which is a damn fine amount of them, if I might add. Plus, these rackets have actually turned out to be tremendously useful, because the old Gruner homeworld is actually a tomb world, and they are particularly suited to settle on that. But that's it for me for this episode of Stellaris. If you're interested in seeing more, go ahead and leave a like on the video. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time.